Join me as we learn Chumash for Tuesday, Parshas Naso. We are now with chapter 5, verse 1. Yesterday we learned about the counting of the Levites and what their jobs were in the Holy Temple. Today the Torah goes on to tell us of how the importance of keeping the camp clean and pure in ritual purification, as well as the Torah tells us the laws of theft and other different laws that come into this Torah reading. Chapter 5. Vayidaber Hashem el Moshe Lamer, and God spoke to Moses saying, Tzavis B'nai Yisrael, speak to the Jewish people. This is after once the Jewish people were organized into 3 different camps. This command was given to them as they separate and they camp in the different ways. Speak to the Jewish people. And the Jewish people have to banish from the camp. They have to send out from all 3 camps any person who was afflicted with tsaras, or any person who had some type of discharge, which causes them to be impure. And because of that, as well as any person who has been defiled, became impure because of touching a dead body. So over here we're told about, as we learned previously in the book of Leviticus pertaining to the laws of impurity, that when a person was impure, he had to go outside the 3 camps. At the moment, they still didn't know what the 3 camps were. Now that we've learned in Parshas Bamidbar, we spoke about where the 3 camps were situated and encamped. Now the commandment comes to them to tell them that this is where they're going to have to leave those 3 camps. Rashi, Tzavis B'nai Yisrael, Parsha Zunemra, this Parsha was told to the Jewish people, B'yom shehukam HaMishkan, on the day that the Mishkan was erected. U'shmoina Parshas Nemra B'yom, 8 different Parshas were said that day, as it says in the Tractate of Gittin in Perek HaNezakim. V'shalchu min HaMachane, what does it mean? They have to banish them from the camp. Sholish Machanis, not just 1 camp, but all 3, which was the Kahuna, the Leviah, and the Israeli. That means the Kohen, which was right by the tabernacle, the Levite camp, and then all the way out behind the Israelite camp. Hoyu Sham B'shas Cheniyas, and they were there while they rested. So you have, what are the 3 camps? Rashi enumerates and tells us the level of holiness each one. The highest level of holiness was Teich HaKloim, Hiyamachan Shechina, within the curtains, within the courtyard, which that was the camp of the divine presence. Second was Chaniyas Alavim Savi, which were the Levites that were immediately around the actual tabernacle. Like we spoke about in the previous Torah reading of Bamidbar, which that was called Machan Leviah. And from there, and then from there, all the different 4 sides, you had 3 tribes on each side. That was Machane Yisrael. Atzarua, and a person with saras, nishtalach mutzlakulan, has to be sent out behind all 3 camps. Hazav, however, a person who is only impure because of a discharge that came from his body, Mutar b'Machane Yisrael, was allowed to be in the Israelite camp, Umeshulach Manashtayim, but was not allowed to be in the Levite or the Machane Shechina. V'Tomei L'Nefesh, a person who was impure because since he touched a dead body, Mutar Af B'Shalavi, was even allowed to be in the Levite camp. Ve'ein Meshulach Ala Mishal Shechina, was just not allowed to be in the actual courtyard of the Holy Temple. V'Chol Zadar Shirabi Seinu, all these laws and the differences with them, we know, as in the Tractate of Pesachim, the rabbis expound and learn it from the different verses that we know it from. Tamei L'Nefesh, impure to an individual. What this means is, that means that they touched a dead carcass, a person. The misav l'tmei nafsha danashat, that they became impure to an individual who is dead. Rashi, that's the way the Unclus explains it, and therefore Rashi explains according to the Unclus. When we talk about nafsha danasha, refers to the bones of an individual in the Aramaic. We find this terminology used in many times in Bereishis Rabbah, the Medrash Rabbah of Bereishis. For example, Adrianus Shachik Tamaya and Shachik Atzamis. That Adrianus, when we mention the name of Adrian, it's a way of a curse about this individual that his bones are shaking, or should be shriveled, should be shaking in his grave. Verse 3. A male or female has to be sent out outside the camp. The shalchum, they should be sent. They should not. This way, they should not come to defile the camps, because I, God, are resting amongst them. And therefore, they have an obligation to maintain it ritually pure. Verse 4. Vayasu chen b'nei Yisrael, and so did the Jewish people. Vayishalchu esamam chutzamachan, and they sent all the above mentioned, whether the tzaras, the zav, according to as we explained in Rashi, outside the camp. Kasher diber Hashem al Moshe, like God spoke to Moshe. Kenos b'nei Yisrael, so did the Jewish people. The Torah reading now continues. This is also, as again, given to them on the first of Iyar, as the Torah stated earlier, pertaining to thievery. But the Torah now adds on to it what the laws may be and how the sacrifices one has to bring as well for it. And God spoke to Moshe saying, Daber b'nei Yisrael, speak to the Jewish people. Ish isha, a man or woman, keyasu mikol chataisa adam, when they commit any of the sins of man, meaning limoil mal b'Hashem, acting treacherously against God, the oshma nefeshehi, and then that person is found guilty. So Rashi explains, what are we talking about over here when a person does a treacherous thing? So Rashi explains what this is referring to. The Torah now over here repeats the laws pertaining to thievery, and a person who swears falsely, takes an oath falsely if he's told he's accused of stealing his friend's money, and takes an oath, and he says, and he denies it with an oath. This is already mentioned in the Torah readings in Leviticus, when we spoke about a person sinning, so when a person does something against God by denying something to his friend, it's repeated here. It's repeated here because there are two things that are different, that we know now, that we don't know, that was not mentioned in the book of Leviticus, which is number one, shekosaf, that it says here, as we're going to see in verse 7, v'yisvadu, that they have to make the confession, meaning that it's teaching us that one is not obligated to pay the extra 20% and the sacrifice until the person either clarifies through witnesses or the person himself confesses to the crime. Number two, v'asheni, secondly, al gezel ager, if somebody steals from a convert, shunit and lekehanim, that because the convert doesn't have any heirs, so therefore who would get the money from it? The money with them would be given to the kohanim, as we're going to see in verse 8 here in our Torah reading. Verse 7, v'yizvadu es chatasam asher asum, they must confess the sin that they committed. V'hein shives hashame, then they also have to make restitution for what they've done. B'reishei, at first, besides making the restitution of the principal amount, they also have to add a fifth onto it, and they have to give it to the one whom he was guilty. Well, first of all, what does it mean you have to give in its head? Meaning you first have to pay the principal back. This is the principle that you swore about, and then you saw that you were wrong, and you swore falsely about. To one who is obligated that he owes the money to. So you have to make sure you pay the principal, B, you have to pay a fifth, and C, there's also going to be a sacrifice that we're going to talk about that they bring. What happens if a person does not have, if he wronged a person who does not have any relatives, meaning he doesn't have somebody who can redeem the property, he doesn't have any kinsmen, to be able to return that restitution to him. So then that actual restitution is restored and is given to the Kohen. It's restored by Hashem and thereby given to the Kohen. Milvad, besides, Eila Kippurim, the atonement that was mentioned previously that he has to bring a sacrifice for, Asher Yechaper Bayalav, through which he becomes clean from that sin and he becomes atoned through with it by bringing that sacrifice. Rashi, meaning a relative of family is called a goyel, one who is redeeming. The person who was demanding the money died. And he doesn't have any heirs to be able to get the money. This person now regrets what he did wrong, and now he comes along and he confesses of what he did wrong, and he wants to confess on his wrongdoing, on his sin. So therefore the rabbis say, is it possible that there is a person in the world that doesn't have relatives? Don't we know that every person in this world has a son, a daughter, a ach, or a brother? Share basar, maybe somebody that's relative. Somebody that's related to his father. Lamaila Yaakov until Yaakov. So who are we referring to? How is it possible that there should be a human being, a Jew, that doesn't have any relatives? So who are we talking about? It must be that it was a convert. Shemay said he died. For Ein Lo Yarshim, and he does not have any heirs, because a non-Jew who converts, his previous family is not considered his relatives, and therefore now that he converts, if he dies without any children, there's nobody there to inherit his property. Because since the convert is considered like a new child, so his new relatives are only the people after he converts. Ha'ashem Mushav Lashem, meaning that goes to the Kohen. Zeh HaKeren VaChaimish. What are you giving to the Kohen? You're going to give the principal amount and the fifth, which is giving to the Kohen. Lashem LaKohen. Why does he say to God, to the Kohen? Kanoi Hashem Nesei LaKohen. God acquires it and he gave it to the Kohen. Shabayisa Mishpar, which Kohen is getting it? The Kohen who is ever shift, it is that time. Milvad Ele Kapurim. With this that we mentioned in the book of Leviticus, that one has to bring a sacrifice through Tzaddik Lahavi. So that sacrifice he still has to bring. Verse 9, V'chol truma l'chol koche b'nei Yisrael. Any, over here we're continuing with every first fruit offering. This is referring now to the Bikurim. L'chol koche b'nei Yisrael. According to, is being only that all the Israelites of all holy things that they have to bring to the Kohen. Yakrivu la'kohen le'siyah. They have to make sure that it's given to the Kohen. What is this referring to, and why does he call it in the terminology of Truma if we're referring to Bikurim? Rashi will explain. Rashi says as follows. Rabbi Shmuel said, V'chi Truma makrivan l'kohen, since when do we bring as a sacrifice the tithe, the fruit of the Kohen? V'lo yom chazer, doesn't the Kohen have to come? Achrel lebeis hagranis, the Kohen comes to all the warehouses and collects it. Since when do we bring it as a sacrifice? Ma'tam leimer sheyakriva l'kohen, what does it mean that you'll bring it as a sacrifice to the Kohen? So Eidlo Abikurim, these are actually referring to the first fruit. Shnemer, as it says, Tav Yitz Hashem Alekecha, that you have to bring your first fruit to God. So Eini Yadeya Maye Alsabem. I still don't know what am I supposed to do with these fruit. Talmud Leimar. Therefore, the Torah says clearly in this case, La Kohen Lo Yeh, you're going to give it to the Kohen. This is the Torah teaching us about the laws pertaining to the fruit. And it should be given to the Kohen. And therefore, when it talks about over here the Truma, it's referring to Bikurim, which is the first fruit, the first best of the fruit that you have to bring and give it to the Kohen. Verse 10, the Ishes Kedashav Lo Yiyu. But even though that the Kohanim and Leviim have to go and collect their entitlements, but everyone's holy things will belong to him. Whatever a man gives to the Kohen belongs to the Kohen. What does this mean? He says as follows. Lafi Rashi, Ishes Kedashav La'iyah. Because he's talking about now the gifts that were given to the Kohen and the Levi. I would think that the Kohen and Leviim can come and start forcing the individual and to be able to impose upon them that you have to give it to me even if the owners don't want to. Talmud Leimar, therefore the verse says, a person owns those holy items. That the favor, the benefit of giving it belongs to the owners. Meaning that they can decide, I can decide which Kohen I want to give it to. I'm not forced to give it to a certain Kohen. Like he finishes, Isha Shayita La Kohen, that whoever this guy decides to give it to whichever Kohen they decide, it's up to them. As it continues, the Midrash explains it this way. Isha's Kedashav Lo Yiyu. And what a person's holiness belongs to him, meaning as follows. If a person who holds back from giving his tithe, and doesn't give it, so good, you'll have in your hands the tithe, you'll have it in your hand. Safe, but the end is, you think you're going to be a smart aleck, and you're going to keep the 10% and not give the tithe. Very good, your field in the future field will only make 10%, and that's what you're going to give, and it's going to get much less. Rashi continues, what does this mean? Therefore, continuing on the previous medrash, a person has to give the Kohen. When you give the Kohen the proper gifts, then God says, Lo yiyah, you will be rewarded with much more, and you will be able to have plenty of money, mami and harba, that you'll be able to give more tithe. teaching us that the mitzvah of giving 10%, the mitzvah of giving to the Kohen and the Levi, you don't lose from it. If you think that you're going to be able to keep it and say, oh, I want to keep it for myself, and therefore God says, okay, keep it, and this is all you're going to make. However, when it comes that if you do give your tithing, and you do give the Kohen and the proper gifts, the Kohen to the Levi, then God promises you, lo yeh, you're going to have plenty to have more and to give more. This concludes the third aliyah for Parshas Naso.